Ruth Bader Ginsburg, U.S. Supreme Court judge, dies of cancer, aged 87. People gathered outside the U.S. Supreme Court on Friday evening to pay tribute to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The passionate champion of women's rights was the oldest judge on the U.S. Supreme Court. The iconic champion of women's rights has died of cancer at the age of 87. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, an iconic champion of women's rights, has died of cancer at the age of 87, the court has said. Ginsburg died on Friday of metastatic pancreatic cancer at her home in Washington, D.C., surrounded by her family, the statement said. Earlier this year, Ginsburg said she was undergoing chemotherapy for a recurrence of cancer. She was a prominent feminist who became a figurehead for liberals in the U.S. Ginsburg was the oldest justice and the second ever woman to sit on the Supreme Court, where she served for 27 years. Our nation has lost a jurist of historic stature, Chief Justice John Roberts said in a statement on Friday. We at the Supreme Court have lost a cherished colleague. Today we mourn, but with confidence that future generations will remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg as we knew her, a tireless and resolute champion of justice. As one of 4 liberal justices on the court, her health was watched closely. Ginsburg's death raises the prospect of Republican U.S. President Donald Trump trying to expand its slender conservative majority, even before this November's election. In the days before her death, Ginsburg expressed her strong disapproval of such a move. My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed, she wrote in a statement to her granddaughter, according to National Public Radio. President Trump is expected to nominate a conservative replacement for Ginsburg as soon as possible, White House sources told BBC partner CBS News. Mr. Trump reacted to Ginsburg's death after an election rally in Minnesota, saying, "I didn't know that. She led an amazing life, what else can you say?" Later on, Mr. Trump said Ginsburg was a titan of the law, and a brilliant mind, in a tweeted statement. Ginsburg had suffered from 5 bouts of cancer, with the most recent recurrence in early 2020. She had received hospital treatment a number of times in recent years, but returned swiftly to work on each occasion. In a statement in July, the judge said her treatment for cancer had yielded positive results, insisting she would not retire from her role. I have often said I would remain a member of the court as long as I can do the job full steam, she said. I remain fully able to do that. U.S. Supreme Court justices serve for life or until they choose to retire, and supporters had expressed concern that a more conservative justice could succeed Ginsburg. The highest court in the U.S. is often the final word on highly contentious laws, disputes between states and the federal government, and final appeals to stay executions. In recent years, the court has expanded gay marriage to all 50 states, allowed for President Trump's travel ban to be put in place and delayed a U.S. plan to cut carbon emissions while appeals went forward. Ginsburg's death will spark a political battle over who will succeed her, spurring debate about the future of the Supreme Court ahead of November's presidential election. President Trump has appointed 2 judges since taking office, and the current court is seen to have a 5-4 conservative majority in most cases. The U.S. Senate has to approve a new judge nominated by the president, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said on Friday evening that if a nominee was put forward before the election, there would be a vote on Mr. Trump's choice. But the Democratic presidential challenger Joe Biden said, "There is no doubt, let me be clear, that the voters should pick the president and the president should pick the justice for the Senate to consider." Over an illustrious legal career spanning 6 decades, Ginsburg attained unparalleled celebrity status for a jurist in the U.S., revered by liberals and conservatives alike. Liberal Americans in particular idolized her for her progressive votes on the most divisive social issues that were referred to the Supreme Court, from abortion rights to same-sex marriages.
She was born to Jewish immigrant parents in Brooklyn, New York City, in 1933. She studied at Harvard Law School, where she was one of only 9 women in a class of about 500 men. Ginsburg did not receive a single job offer after graduation, despite finishing top of her class. But Ginsburg persisted, working in various jobs in the legal profession throughout the 1960s and far beyond. In 1972, Ginsburg co-founded the Women's Rights Project at the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. That same year, Ginsburg became the first tenured female professor at Columbia Law School. In 1980, Ginsburg was nominated to the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia as part of former President Jimmy Carter's efforts to diversify federal courts. Though Ginsburg was often portrayed as a liberal firebrand, her days on the appeals court were marked by moderation. Ginsburg was appointed to the Supreme Court by former President Bill Clinton in 1993, becoming only the second of 4 female justices to be confirmed to the court. Toward the end of her life, Ginsburg became a national icon. Due in part to her withering dissents, Ginsburg was dubbed the Notorious RBG by her army of fans online, a nod to the late rapper The Notorious Big. That comparison introduced Ginsburg to a new generation of young feminists, turning her into a cult figure. Former presidents, veteran politicians and senior jurists were among those to mourn the loss of Ginsburg on Friday. They commended her accolades and hailed her commitment to women's rights. Former President Jimmy Carter called her a truly great woman, writing in a statement, "A powerful legal mind and a staunch advocate for gender equality, she has been a beacon of justice during her long and remarkable career. I was proud to have appointed her to the U.S. Court of Appeals in 1980." Praising her pursuit of justice and equality, former President George W. Bush said Ginsburg inspired more than one generation of women and girls. Hillary Clinton, a Democrat who ran against President Trump in the 2016 presidential election, said she drew inspiration from Ginsburg. Conservative politicians also paid their respects to Ginsburg. "It was with great sadness that I learned of the passing of Justice Ginsburg," Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said on Twitter. Justice Ginsburg was a trailblazer who possessed tremendous passion for her causes. She served with honor and distinction as a member of the Supreme Court. Eric Trump, the son of President Trump, said Ginsburg was a remarkable woman with an astonishing work ethic. "She was a warrior with true conviction and she has my absolute respect." Rip, he wrote on Twitter. Within hours of the news emerging, hundreds of people had gathered outside the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. to pay their respects. The BBC's Alexandra Ostasiewicz at the scene said the mood was somber but the crowd occasionally broke into chants of "RBG" and "Vote him out." News from BBC. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.